Edmund Burke once commented that to tax and to please, no more than to love and be wise, is not known to man. He was right then and he is right today. No tax system is perfect. In fact, taxes, like government, are a necessary evil. A crucial point then in today's debate round is which tax system is the lesser evil. We as the negative team believe that the current income tax system claims this title. It is the lesser evil. Consider the following 3 points as to why we should stick with the current system and not change. You can simply write these at the top of your flow. The first reason is that the tax burden on the American people is going down. According to Glenn Kessler from the Washington Post, March 26, 2000, for all but the wealthiest Americans, the federal income tax burden has shrunk to the lowest level in 4 decades. Most Americans this year will have to fork over less than 10% of their income to Uncle Sam when they file federal income taxes. The second reason why we should stick with the current system is that tax enforcement procedures are improving dramatically, according to the San Francisco Chronicle, December 11, 1999. But of equal importance is the IRS overhaul law passed by Congress in 1998. The law shifted the burden of proof from the taxpayer to the agency and granted other new rights to the people involved in collection matters. And the third and final reason is that no matter what the affirmative team brings forth in this debate round, nothing justifies the complete elimination of Congress's power to tax income. According to Alexander Hamilton from the Federalist Paper number 30, he states, there must be interwoven in the frame of government a general power of taxation in one shape or another. Money is, with propriety, considered as a vital principle of the body politic, as that which sustains its life and motion and enables it to perform its most essential functions. So these are 3 reasons why we as the negative team believe there is no justification for getting rid of the current system. And we would challenge the negative team, or the affirmative team, excuse me, to argue why these are not justifications for sticking with the current system. That being said, let's move on to the affirmative case. Now, in this speech, I will devote the majority of my time to the harms, and my partner in his next speech will devote all of his time to the policy. So first of all, the definitions. The definitions that they have brought forth, we do accept, and they are therefore the boundaries for today's debate round. The resolutional analysis, that the system should be by the consent of the governed. This criteria we do accept, and we will show how the status quo fulfills it. The issue of respecting the authority of states, however, a crucial point must be made in today's debate round, and that is that the federal government, the Founding Fathers did not intend for the states to retain the power of taxation. They did not want the federal government to be dependent upon the states for the revenue. So we do not accept this criteria in that sense. And the final criteria, privacy rights being restored, we do accept this criteria, and we will show how the status quo is improving to fulfill this criteria. That being said, let us turn to the harms. Harm A is fraudulent ratification. Now, our arguments against this are basically twofold. The first argument is, where is the impact? Now, the affirmative team brought forth a couple examples of how Minnesota possibly didn't ratify it correctly and they never voted on it. But the fact is that every single tax law that the United States has been voted on by the people. Every tax law that we have has been voted on by the American people. And this is the most important point, that the fact that the American people have voted on it, and therefore it is by the consent of the government. Our second argument against this harm is, if the states were really upset about, let's say Minnesota never did ratify it. If they were truly upset about it, why didn't they complain? The affirmative team has yet to prove us some evidence showing that the states were disgusted at the federal government for ratifying an amendment which they never voted on. And so far they have not brought forth that evidence. However, the Supreme Court has ruled that the correct amount of states that needed to ratify the amendment ratified the amendment. According to the case United States versus Thomas, 1986, 38 states ratified the 16th Amendment, and 37 sent formal instruments of ratification to the Secretary of State, Minnesota. Minnesota notified the Secretary orally, and additional states ratified later. So we can clearly see that, he goes on. It has also been claimed that the votes of Georgia legislature were recorded incorrectly, and that Georgia actually rejected the amendment, contrary to Knox's report. However, no congressman or other official from Georgia has ever complained about the error, and even if there was an error and Georgia did not ratify the amendment, there would still have been 37 ratifications, one more than required. So we can clearly see that the correct amount of votes were sent in. Moving on to harm B, this issue of state sovereignty. Now, the gist of this harm, according to the affirmative team, is that the rules of apportionment and uniformity in the Constitution were destroyed by the 16th Amendment. Now, these two rules, in case you do not know, are in Article 1, Section 8 and 9 of the Constitution. And the framers did not intend for these rules to make it so that the government didn't, quote-unquote, assert state powers. According to Robert Yates, a New York judge and political ally of New York Governor George Clinton, in an article he wrote on October 18, 1787, he states, "The legislative power is competent to lay taxes, duties, imposts, and excises. There is no limitation to this power, unless it be said that the clause which directs the use to which those taxes and duties shall be applied may be said to be a limitation." The clauses that the affirmative is referring to. But he goes on, "This is no restriction of the power at all. This power, therefore, is neither more nor less than the power to lay and collect taxes, imposts, and excises at their pleasure. Not only is the power to lay taxes unlimited as to the amount they may require, but it is perfect and absolute to raise them in any mode they please." See, the Founding Fathers strongly guarded against leaving the states in control of the taxation and sending the money to the federal government, which I will get to really quickly here. Moving on to harm C, the issue of privacy rights being hurt. Now, our argument against this harm is that, yes, in the past the IRS has been abusive, but they are reforming right now. And in the opening quotation, our negative philosophy, I read a quotation showing how the IRS is improving. Here's one more quotation from Joseph Anthony, tax professional in Worth Magazine, October 1999. He states, "It does look like the IRS has cut way back in enforcement of the tax laws. Credit those congressional hearings and the resulting IRS Restructuring and Reform Act in 1998. This is one case where Congress has made a difference. The new law has led to a kinder, gentler, customer-oriented IRS. The IRS is improving." So this harm is not embedded to the current system. That being said, let us turn to the affirmative policy now. Now, I will be levying some general arguments against their case, which you can simply flow across their mandates, and my partner will expand on these. We have a couple of workability arguments. The first is that there is no way to ensure that the states will pay the federal government. In cross-examination, this point was brought forth, and the affirmative team has no way to ensure that the states will send the money to the government. Our second workability argument is that their plan, specifically their national sales tax, is unadministrable due to the rate of the national sales tax. The compliance will break down at such a high rate. A couple of disadvantages that you can flow across their plan. Number one, their tax is a hidden tax. Right now, when you go to the store and buy something, I'm sure you don't know how much money you paid last year in your sales taxes. That's the problem with the national sales tax, that the government can raise the rate without you knowing. Another disadvantage is that it will be intrusive. The fact that they're having rebates in their policy will make it so the IRS will still have to know information from citizens, so their plan is insolvent. And one more argument I'd like to make is that the affirmative team cannot give any more specifics to their case because of the fact that we have to debate what they have brought forth in their case. So if they bring up another thing about exemptions, please be careful in considering that because of the fact that we must debate what was given to us. So the advantages they brought forth: constitutional integrity restored. Right now the government has fulfilled that. State sovereignty upheld. We do not want this to happen. And lastly, privacy restored. The IRS is working to reform us. So for all these reasons, I would urge you to stick with the system that is working and reject the affirmative policy.